Welcome to Monday Fiction.
Yes, I will tell you an experience if you care to listen, and I will tell it briefly. Just the essentials, but on one condition. No questions at the end. I can't explain it and have no wish to, she said from a seat in the dark corner. We agreed. After hearing long-winded stories from people with nothing to say, we wanted something real. In those days, I was interested in psychic things and had arranged to spend a night alone in a haunted house in the middle of London. It was a cheap, dingy lodging house, unfurnished in a mean street. I had already inspected it in daylight and gotten the keys from the caretaker next door. The story was compelling enough to investigate. When I arrived at 11 p.m., I was annoyed to find a man waiting on the steps. I assumed he was the talkative old caretaker, though I had made it clear I wanted to be alone. "I wish to show you the room," he muttered. I couldn't exactly refuse, so I let him in. We walked through the dark hall up to the first floor where the murder had taken place. I braced myself for his usual tale, ready to pay him off and send him away. After lighting the gas, I sat in the old faded plush armchair he had provided and turned to him, wanting to get it over with. That's when I got my first shock. The man wasn't the caretaker. It was not the old fool Carrie whom I had spoken to earlier that day. My heart gave a horrid jump. "Who are you?" I asked. "You are not Carrie, the man I arranged with. Who are you?" I was uncomfortable. I was a psychical researcher, proud of my independence, but suddenly found myself in an empty house with a stranger. Confidence drained away, replaced by fear. The man was well dressed, young and good looking, but had a face full of sadness. "I barely 30, repeated nervously. "Who are you?" "I am the man who was frightened to death," he said. His words cut through me like a knife. My mind raced, latching into the unimportant, my notebook in my pocket, the extra clothes I wore, even how this might appear in the papers. "The man who was frightened to death?" I gasped. "That's me," he replied. I stared at him, terrorizing. "But I thought you were the caretaker I tipped earlier. Did Carrie send you?" "No," he answered in that unsettling voice. "I am the man who was frightened to death, and I'm still frightened." "I am terrified," I admitted. "Yes, but you are still in flesh. I'm not." I stood up, determined to assert myself, digging my nails into my palms. "What do you mean you are not in flesh?" The night swallowed my voice. For the first time, I realized the city was dark, the stairs dusty, and the house empty. I was alone in a haunted house, unprotected, and I froze. I heard the wind around the house, and the stars were hidden. My thoughts darted to policemen and buses, anything comforting. I realized how foolish I was to come alone. Fear gripped me. "Good God, if you are not Carrie, who are you?" I was stiff with terror as the man moved towards me. I stood, holding out my arm. He stopped in front of me, a sad smile on his face. "I told you who I am, and I am still frightened." Convinced I was facing a rogue or madman, I cursed my stupidity. Ghosts and psychic phenomena vanished from my mind. My only goal now was to escape. I stood up straight, bracing myself. "I remember now," I said with a forced smile. "I remember your case and how bravely you behaved." The man stared at me, confused, as I backed toward the door. But when his smile returned, I lost control. I dashed for the door, ran out into the landing, and foolishly took the wrong direction. I stumbled over the stairs, banging into the darkness, and rushed into the erst open room. The door had a key in the lock, and I quickly turned it after slamming the door behind me. I was safe, until I realized I wasn't alone. A figure stood by the window, barely outlined against the glass. I had locked myself in with him. My heart pounded, but now it wasn't just physical fear. It had shifted to something deeper, a fear in my soul. I knew who this man was. "How did you get up here?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. He answered in that distant, chilling voice.
I am in a different space, and you would find me in any room. I am all over the house. Space doesn't affect me because I am not in the body. I want something to change my condition so I can leave. I want sympathy, or more than that, I want love.
As he spoke, I stood shaking with exhaustion and fear. I fumbled for matches to light the gas.
I would be happier if you didn't. The vibrations of your light hurt me. I can't touch you. There's a great divide between us, and this half-light suits me best. Now let me continue what I was saying. So many people have come to this house to see me, and they have all been terrified. If only someone would be kind and loving to me, then you see, I might be able to change my condition and get away.
His voice was so sad that I felt tears well up, but fear held them back. I stood there, cold and shaking. Who are you then? Carrie didn't send you. I know that now. I stammered, barely able to think straight.
I know nothing about Carrie. I have forgotten even my own name, the name my body had. Thank God. I am the man who was frightened to death in this house 10 years ago, and I have been frightened ever since. People come out over here out of curiosity, and their fear keeps me trapped in this atmosphere of terror. If only someone would be kind, laugh, speak gently, cry, comfort me. Anything but tremble and fear like you are now. Won't you take pity on me?
His voice rose to a desperate cry.
Won't you step into the middle of the room and try to love me a little?
A strange laughter bubbled up in my throat, but pity overwhelmed it. I found myself moving from the wall, stepping towards the center of the room.
By God, that's the first act of kindness shown to me since I died, and I feel better already. In life, I was a misanthrope. Everything went wrong, and I came to hate people so much that I couldn't bear to see them. That hate was returned, and I suffered from horrible delusions. Demons haunted my room. One night, a cluster of them appeared, and fright killed me. It's not just terror that keeps me here. It's hate and remorse. If someone could feel pity, sympathy, maybe even love for me, I could finally leave. When you came this afternoon, I watched you. For the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope. I saw you had courage, originality, love. If I could touch your heart without scaring you, maybe I could borrow that love and escape.
Now I must confess, my heart began to ache as fear left me, and the man's words sank in with their sad meaning. The whole affair felt so unreal, so touched with an unnatural quality that I felt like I was in a nightmare I would wake from at any moment. His words had taken hold of me so deeply that I couldn't think of anything else, not of escape nor action. I moved closer to him, still terribly frightened, but with a strange determination building inside me.
You woman, you wonderful woman, who often don't get the chance to spend your great love. If only you knew how many souls like mine yearn for it, you could save us. If you let your love flow freely without focus, you would release so many of us. Oh, Madame, I beg you, be kind, gentle, and love me a little.
My heart leaped, and this time tears came. I laughed at how strange he called me Madame in this empty room at midnight, but that quickly turned to sobs. I saw how my change in feeling had affected him. He was now kneeling at my feet, hands stretched out with the faint glow of a kind of glory about him.
Put your arms around me and kiss me for the love of God. Kiss me and I shall be freed. You have done so much already, now just do this.
I stood there hesitating, shaking, close to acting, yet unable to make the final step, but the terror had almost gone.
Forget I'm a man, forget you are a woman, forget that I'm a ghost. Just come boldly, press me to you, kiss me, and let your love flow into me. Forget yourself for just a minute and do a brave thing. Love me, please, and I shall be free.
His words stirred something deep within me, an emotion stronger than fear. It surged over me, pushing me into action. Without hesitation, I stepped forward, arms outstretched. Genuine pity and love filled my heart. I forgot my fears, consumed by a powerful desire to help another soul. I love you, poor, aching, unhappy soul. I love you, and I am not afraid. The man made a strange sound, like laughter, yet not laughter. His face, illuminated by both the streetlight and another eerie glow, turned toward me. He stood, and at that moment I embraced him, kissing him again and again on the lips. All our pipes had gone out, and the room was silent as I paused, wiping my tears. I could barely describe the sensation I felt, holding something intangible so close it pressed against me and then melted into my very being. It was like grasping a gust of cold wind and feeling the warmth of fire at the same time. A series of shocks ran through me, a moment of ecstatic sweetness, and then I was alone. The room was empty. I turned on the gaslight to confirm it. Fear had completely left me, replaced by a joy that sang in the air around me. No ghosts or shadows could disturb me now. I searched the entire house, kitchen, cellar, even the attic, but it was empty. Something has left. I lingered for an hour, thinking before leaving and locking the door behind me on a house no longer haunted. The next day, I told my uncle Sir Henry what had happened, but before I could begin, he interrupted.
First, I need to confess something. I invented that story about a woman's murder to test the power of imagination. The real story is that a cousin of mine, after years of hypochondria, went mad and killed himself in that house. It is his figure that people claim to see.
That explains. I began thinking of that poor soul who had longed for release.
Explains what?
Why I didn't see the ghost of the murdered woman, I replied, deciding to keep the truth to myself.
Precisely, which makes whatever you saw even more significant, since it was influenced by a fabricated story.